Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 22nd and now final race review episode of the BadMotoGP-Show. I guess we will do something like a season review or maybe an outlook for 2023. I don't know yet. So these things come up spontaneously. But yeah, the final episode for the final race. And we have a new world champion. So Pecco did everything he needed to do. It wasn't a miraculous performance, but he just kept himself out of trouble, more or less. I still necessarily wouldn't, if I was him, I wouldn't be engaging in the battle with Fabio. I think this is, for him, pretty pointless in this situation, but it made a good show. So yeah, what did you think about the race and Pecco's championship?
Yes, hello everybody. We have reached the end of the season. Valencia happened today. Brilliant race. Just everything I expected and more. And Pecco became a very deserving MotoGP champion. Obviously, I was rooting for Fabio Quartararo. I'm not going to lie. I thought he was about to do the impossible, and unfortunately, it was just a bit too far for him today. But take nothing away from Pecco Bagnaia. He had a brilliant race. He's had a brilliant season, well, second half of the season. And all around, he is an extremely deserving world champion. I enjoyed it very, very much.
Yeah, I would argue that he still had a good first half of the season because he won 3 races, but he crashed too often. And yeah, there's this narrative when you check the Formula One Twitter account, and they have a congratulations post for Pecco and his championship. And the comments down there are hilarious because there's this narrative that Pecco only won because he has the superior bike. And it's not difficult on this bike. There are people in the comments, even the Lewis Hamilton fan was like, yeah, basically it's worthless because the bike is so overpowered. And that coming from a Lewis Hamilton fan is kind of funny, but yeah. Okay. And to me, this is just plain stupid. Pecco was phenomenal and he had the best bike on the grid. That's true. But you still have to do it. I mean, ask Jack Miller about it, ask Jorge Martin about it, ask every other Ducati about it. Enea Bastianini, they simply couldn't do what Pecco did. And especially the second half of the season was so great. And the second narrative is like the team order thing, which to me is stupid because I didn't really saw team orders. I saw more of Ducati riders not being stupid. Like the battles that Fabio and Pecco had today were pretty intense and they could have gone wrong either way. So I don't necessarily understand why Pecco chose to battle with Fabio because he had everything to lose and nothing to gain. But if this was a Ducati, let's say in Australia, in whatever, and something would have gone wrong, you would have been the most hated man in the company, so they're just not stupid. And yeah, so to just blame it on like he had the best bike and he had team orders is to me just a stupid argument because Pecco was hands down the best rider / bike combination that we have. It's true that the Ducati is better than Yamaha, and in my opinion, Fabio is still the better rider, but motorcycle racing at the end is a team sport. Ask Brad Binder about it. And yeah, so to me, Pecco is the deserving champion, and Ducati is also the deserving Triple Crown champion. They're doing a fantastic job over the years. It's not Ducati's fault that they have 8 bikes on the grid. It's not Ducati's fault that Yamaha is shit. So every criticism regarding Pecco is just stupid because you still have to pull it off. And what Pecco did in most races this season is utterly amazing. His
Yeah,
level was so high that it reminded me like of a peak Jorge Lorenzo. he has like this similar style where he gets in front and just has a pace that destroys people.
Yeah, it's an excellent comparison to make. And like, I'll take this from the very top. First of all, this criticism of Pecco is completely unfair. You know, yes, he does have the best bike on the grid, but guess what, people? At the end of the day, you have to get on the bike, you have to stay on the bike, you have to qualify in the bike, and you have to race on the bike. And trying to undermine somebody who is capable of riding at 350 kilometers per hour on some of the best and most dangerous circuits in the world is just a ridiculous argument at best. It really, really is. And like you said, coming from a Lewis Hamilton fan, I'm not going to go there, but you know what I'm talking about. Look, Pecco's a more than deserving champion. Like I said, you got to go out, you still got to win the races, you got to qualify, and you have to do what you have to do. And there weren't even any team orders today, thank God. You know, loads of Ducati riders overtook Pecco. Jorge Martin didn't drop back to let Pecco win. Luca Marini overtook Pecco. Enea Bastianini overtook Pecco. Where you show me where that's unfair. At the end of the day, the facts are the facts. Pecco is a more than deserving champion. He's been the most consistent rider for the second half of the season. He's taken his opportunities and he's a worthy world champion. There's really nothing more to say.
Yeah, and while we are talking about it, Lewis Hamilton is also a worthy world champion because you still have to do it. And the level, which is so incredibly high, and like the pressure is always super high, especially in Formula One, because like the Formula One community, as this tweet shows, is so much more toxic. And
Oh,
they're
yeah.
basically insulting everybody. So this showed me once again that the MotoGP community, even though MotoGP, like from a Dorna perspective, is doing a lot wrong, but the community in itself is really beautiful. And this is like still a niche sport, but it's full of wholesome people.
Absolutely.
There aren't many, at least I experience it. There aren't many people who are insulting, like even me or whatever. Most people are pretty friendly, and occasionally there's an asshole. Okay, it is what it is. But yeah, and I was just looking up the championship standings while you were talking, and Francesco Bagnaia has 265 points, and Jack Miller has 189 points. So it's 76 points of a difference, and they have exactly the same bike. And this is the difference between Pecco and Jack Miller, because Jack Miller is a good rider who has some good weekends, who has some okayish weekends, and have some bad weekends. And apart from the crashes, Pecco has like no bad weekends. He has no off weekends. They were like in Mandalika, I remember a bad weekend, and like at the beginning of the season, the Ducati wasn't as good as it's now, but he is always on the money and crashes sometimes. If he fixes that, he would have been champion in Aragon, you know?
Yeah, it's absolutely true. You know, it comes back to the same argument, but I'll repeat it one more time in case people didn't understand what I said. At the end of the day, yes, the Ducati is the best bike in the grid. We've argued that since damn near the beginning of the season that it's the best bike in the grid. Nobody is arguing that. What we are arguing is that you don't have the right to take credit away from someone just because they have access to that. Now, do I think Fabio Quartararo is the best rider in the world? In my honest opinion, yes, I do. I think he's ridden a worse bike to the very limit of what it is capable of and still taken the title to the final day. That is not taking credit away from Pecco Bagnaia. He is a magnificent motorcycle racer who is a worthy world champion. He's consistent, he's fast, and he has won a lot of races. If that does not make a champion, you show me what does.
Yeah, and it's a little bit sad because Pecco absolutely deserved this world championship, and
Yeah.
we should just be praising him. Instead, we're talking about people who are complaining. I mean, I just saw this tweet a couple of minutes ago, so it's rather fresh in my mind. And like the way he wrote this season is, I don't know, it's like Jorge Lorenzo-esque, except
Yeah.
the You know, if he sorts out the crashing, I feel like nobody except maybe Enea, but Enea has his flaws too, can beat him because he is so incredibly good. And he has this bike because he developed it partly. He is the rider with Jack Miller, with Joan Zarco, and all the other riders who are at Ducati. And Michele Pirro, of course, he deserves a lot of credit. But Ducati has a structure which allows them to be successful. And Pecco is a part of the structure. So that the bike is so good is part of Pecco's work, you know?
Yeah, it's a testament to the rider Pecco Bagnaia is. You know, we have mid-season testing for a reason. It's for riders to give feedback on the bikes they race in order to get it into the best condition possible. You know, a lot of people are basically creating this narrative that Pecco just casually rocks up every weekend, hops in the best bike and blows everybody else away. If you saw a tenth of the work that these guys put in behind the scenes, you wouldn't criticize them for how good they are. And that's just the reality. Guys like Pecco, guys like Fabio, guys like Alicia Spargaro, and everybody in between, they show up, they put in the utmost amount of work that they can. And look, there can only ever be one champion. That's the way sports is. You know, it's the reason why it's meaningful at all. But to criticize a world champion and say that they don't deserve it is just it's just mind-blowingly ignorant. It really, really is. And the last point I'll make, Leo, is a very good point that you made. You know, we should be here celebrating Pecco and a brilliant achievement for a young man who's just realized his life's dream. And instead, we're having to talk about some loser trying to bring him down. You know, it's disappointing. But thankfully, our MotoGP community is generally a lot better than the F1 community.
Yeah, and you talked about Fabio briefly. Fabio, technically speaking, would have been the world champion if he made no mistakes at all. If he didn't crash in Assen, if he didn't crash in Australia and had this, had this mistake into, what was it, turn four in Australia?
Yeah.
The Jack Miller corner, then he would have been world champion right now. And this in itself, there are a lot of if, buts, and maybes in sports. But if you take this statement, it values Pecco's performance even more because Pecco had 5 DNFs, if I remember correctly, and still was able to pull it off. Fabio Quartararo, who we both agree is the best rider in the world right now on a shitty bike, it would have taken for him a perfect season with no mistakes, like the Marc Marquez thing in Aragon. It's not his fault that his tire pressure was so high in Thailand was not his fault, but everything that he can control, if he would have done it perfectly, he would have been a world champion. Against a man who has 5 DNFs, I mean, that says a lot on how fucking good Pecco Bagnaia is.
Yeah, of course it does. And you know, the last point I think we should make about this criticism of Pecco is this: if you have a reigning world champion, and that reigning world champion would have had to have had a perfect, flawless season just to compete with you, then you're damn good.
Yeah. Then you are really, really good. And he absolutely deserves it. It's great that Valentino Rossi and the whole academy now have a MotoGP world champion. They had a Moto2 world champion with Pecco before. They had a Moto2 world champion with Frankie, and a couple of very, very good riders with Luca Marini, Marco Bezzecchi, and Lorenzo Baldassarri partly in Moto2. Then, you know, it feels like Valentino Rossi is still there and his legacy continues. But regarding this, something really interesting popped into my head. If the VR46 Riders Academy that were in place like for the last, what was it, 10 years basically?
Pretty much, yeah.
Now more or less shutting down and are just continuing with the riders that they are having, because later on we should talk about Nicolo Antonelli and Gomez, who is supposedly replacing him at Valentino Rossi's team for next season. Like, it feels like that the whole operation has been successful And now they aren't putting any efforts on developing new young talent. And it was something like Valentino Rossi wanted when he was riding back then, but now maybe not anymore. Maybe it's just a little break and they will continue in a couple of years with young talent. But there is nobody really coming up, you know? And this would be interesting to hear your thoughts about the Riders Academy, if it's like dying out slowly and are just that Valentino Rossi accomplished his goals in bringing up new talent and making them champions, and now is saying, okay, it's up to you, and it's not trying to bring up even more Italian talent, you know?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you brought this up, Leo, because I think it's a fascinating subject to discuss. I genuinely do. And I think at the end of the day, this really comes down to Valentino Rossi's mindset and what he wanted to achieve. Realistically, we can sit here and we can theorize about the Riders Academy and what it's planning to do and why it might be shutting down and all this kind of stuff. But unless we ever get the chance to talk to the Lord himself, we'll never really have an answer. Now, my best theory for this is that
Continue talking, I think.
all right, no problem at all. I was going to offer a brief intermission there, but no problem. We keep rocking. My best theory about the VR46 Academy is that Valentino likely wanted an immediate peanut.
No, it's not
Oh,
Peanut.
it's a peanut. I didn't even notice. I thought it was peanut. Who is this?
This is Max, my cat.
Max.
Yeah, Max was standing in front of the door, and I let her in. So
Hello, Max.
say hello.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have two mascots for the BadMotoGP podcast. We have Max and Peanut.
Yeah, funny story about how we called her Max, because we got it from a friend of my mother. And we initially thought it was a male cat because we were told to. So we gave her the name. Then we went to the vet for the first time, and the vet told us, nope, it's actually a female cat. But she was listening to the name, and yeah, we just kept it. So it's a female Max. I think it works wonderfully. And yeah, it's always nice because I'm right now at my mom's place, and it's nice to see this now a little bit old lady, which was by my side for like half of my life. So yeah, I just wanted to let her in because she was in the garden, had some cat experiences, made some cat stuff, you know, and is now eating a little bit. So yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I didn't wanted to.
No. Any animal interventions are worth interrupting for on this show. This is what we do. It's short for Maxine. Leo, you knew all along.
Yeah.
It's worked out perfectly. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we do on the Bad MotoGP podcast. As you can see with Max/Ine, we make it work. But back to the VR46 Academy and your cat. Yeah, my theory with the Riders Academy is that Valentino Rossi wanted an immediate successor to his legacy. And I think he wanted someone to carry on the lineage of Italian royalty in MotoGP. And I think now that he has a champion in Pecco Bagnaia, it's possible that maybe he thinks his work is done. The other thing that I will say is obviously Valentino and his beautiful girlfriend Francesca have their lovely daughter now, Giulietta. Really happy for them. I'm delighted they have such a lovely family now. I would guess personal issues might be another factor as well. He probably wants to spend as much time with his young daughter and his girlfriend as he can. Obviously that is always the priority, and it should always be the focus over racing. But that would be a guess of mine. I'm in no way saying I'm qualified to suggest that that's the reason. I'm just saying that would be my theory. And I think he's more than earned it as well, by the way. I'm in no way saying that as any kind of criticism. I think he's absolutely earned the right to take some time for him and his family, to watch his daughter grow up and to have some really good family time together. But it could be any number of reasons, really. It could be that he thinks his work is done, which in fairness, it probably is. It could be maybe financial. COVID has hurt a lot of people. It's possible that, there's issues with that. I don't know. I'm not qualified to say that. I'm just putting it out there. But I think my best guess would be what I said. I think it's probably he's already found his successor, and I'd say there's some family things there as well, maybe.
Yeah, maybe he's sick of them kids now that he has them around 24.
Piss off.
No, but as far as I'm concerned, the Valentino Rossi Academy started with Marco Simoncelli, basically. And
Hmm.
this is like something that he wanted to carry on. And then he
Yeah.
had these incredibly talented young riders, which he brought up into MotoGP and took them under his wings.
Hmm.
And has been super successful. And I feel like with his retirement, he wanted to close this chapter more or less without um, without throwing the retaining riders, the maintaining the remaining. This is the word I'm looking for. The remaining riders out. But now you see a lot of younger riders, or you see, I don't know if they're actually younger, but on the lower classes, they are leaving the academy, like Nicolo Bolega did, like Lorenzo Baldassari did, and now apparently Nico Antonelli and Mino and Manzi. I feel like they're cleaning the house a little bit and just retaining the Peccos, the Frankies, Luca Marini, Marco Bezzecchi, and are just giving them like now full access to the whole training facility, but not bothering to bring in new talent. I feel like there was a attempt with Alberto Sura and Elia Bartolini, but I don't know if that necessarily paid out the way they envisioned it. And my explanation would be that their job is done and Valentino Rossi now wants to enjoy retirement and just keep the project alive that is in place, but not trying to bring something new. Maybe he will change his approach, but I highly doubt that money would be his motivation, because if he has one thing, it's money.
That is true. That is very, very true. Yeah, like I think that's a perfectly reasonable explanation and arguably the most likely explanation as well. I mean, look, Valentino has really, since he retired, Valentino still hasn't really put his feet up or had any time to rest. He's still had his teams to run. He's been doing, his endurance racing with the VR46 racing team as well. So it is perfectly possible he's just taken some very well-earned time off to rest, to build some family time and enjoy all the good stuff that comes with that. Personally, I hope it isn't the end because I love the VR46 racing team and I love all the brilliant riders that it's produced. The Morbidellis, the Banyayas, even in Moto2, the riders that they have now, even the Luca Marinis, they have produced some sensational talent, and it's been an excellent gateway for Italian riders to get into the championship as well. So I hope it's not the end. I really hope it isn't, but at the same time, I'd understand why.
Yeah, and I don't know what there's more to accomplish.
That's true.
What do you want more? So maybe he's just saying, okay, it's enough is enough. And yeah, so with Pecco now, he has a world champion in MotoGP. He has 2 world champions in Moto2. His brother is racing in MotoGP. So yeah. And I would like to switch gears a little bit to Fabio, because he and also Frankie, I feel like they could be looking at a very competitive Yamaha for 2023, simply for the reason because I believe that Fabio, when he signed the contract, was in the best position anybody in this in the history of mankind ever was when it came to contract, because he was winning everything and all the other Yamahas were just not even in the points. Back then, there were a brief period where every point Yamaha actually scored for the Constructors' Championship, where only the best rider counts, was scored by Fabio. And he was basically saying, either you give me a good bike because I'm sick of your shit, or I'm leaving. And they must have put something in place, which is, for example, the Aprilia engine developer, which came from Aprilia to Yamaha for next year. or maybe this year. I don't know if it's instantly or next year. I don't know. But yeah, he worked for Ferrari previously, I believe.
That's
And
right.
yeah, so they're putting the right pieces into place to give Fabio what he deserves. And I feel like Frankie is benefiting from it as well, because Frankie has some better performances. They're not on Fabio's level, but still better.
A big improvement.
Yeah. And Fabio seemed kind of okay with losing the title because the pressure was off. I feel like Fabio felt the burden of carrying the whole Yamaha company on his back. And
Absolutely.
now it's like the pressure is gone, and I feel like he's more happy because I don't know, but I think this whole pressure isn't something that he likes. I feel like he was better without pressure. And yeah, so let's see what the future holds for them, but I believe they will be very happy. And I think it's a very interesting period for MotoGP, because having multiple world champions is always fun, because you don't want like a Marc Marquez or even Valentino Rossi. You go into a season and you know already, okay, he's going to win, you know? And I feel like it's a very interesting period. And for 2023, there are a lot of championship contenders, which could be interesting. Some wildcards, and yeah. So I'm excited for the test on Tuesday.
Oh, absolutely, yes. And I'm really glad we're touching on Fabio here, because we absolutely should. I said at the very beginning of this episode, about the race today itself, absolutely incredible. Vintage Fabio, brilliant, brave, aggressive. Unfortunate to not retain his title, but he will grow so much from this that you would not believe. There's a very famous saying, and the saying is, heavy is the head that wears the crown. And Fabio has worn the crown now. He knows what it feels like, and he knows the expectations that come with it. And now he's almost, like you said, he's almost unshackled from the burden of wearing the crown. And Fabio now knows he has the ability to win multiple championships because he's won it already. Granted, Pecco will now know that, but Fabio does too. And you made an excellent, excellent point there, Leo, that I'd like to expand on briefly. When Fabio signed his new, excuse me, when Fabio signed his new contract, there is not a hope in this earth or in hell that Fabio would not have made sure that he was going to have a better bike next year, because Fabio is one of the very few riders in the world that any factory would boot one of their riders out just to get him in. So Fabio, I have no doubt, would have leveraged his position perfectly, and he would have guaranteed that he is getting a better bike. And I think we will see a better Yamaha for 2023. At the very least, I desperately hope so. But yeah, I think things are actually looking up for Yamaha. I think Frankie Morbidelli looks like he's getting back to a lot of confidence. Even today, I know it was only for P9 and P10, or P8 and P9, I think it was actually. But Morbidelli was actually dueling quite confidently with Pecco Bagnaia. They were swapping positions a couple of times, and it looked like the old Frankie Morbidelli. So I think Fabio is going to have an actual active teammate next year, which will be a massive relief for him. And the thing is, as well, even at the last test that we had, the Yamaha was topping some of the speed charts as well. So it tells me that there is something that Yamaha is doing that is actually working. The last point that I'm going to make is, I don't know, maybe Yamaha have done this, maybe they haven't. But one thing I would do is I would recruit as many engineers from that Suzuki team as I can to make that bike better, because my God, they have done a magnificent job with that bike. It's the same engine configuration and everything. Get those people in from Suzuki and you will build a very competitive M1 Yamaha.
Yeah, regarding Suzuki, there are two very, very interesting topics regarding Suzuki, which I wanted to talk about. The first one is obvious, Alex Rins, his enormous victory. You couldn't have written a better script.
Oh, no, you couldn't.
The only better thing would be if Suzuki won the world championship in their last season, but
Yeah.
obviously it didn't happen. And Alex Rins winning their last Grand Prix the way he did was so impressive. And I'm so happy for him. I mean, I can only imagine how much it meant to him, the team, and everybody who's involved in the Suzuki. And man, are they doing a mistake.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm tweeting Elon Musk, as you can see here right now. I don't care what I have to do. I don't care if I have to move heaven and earth. Suzuki have to stay in this championship. I'm tweeting him right now, and if I get a response, I will let you all know. Probably won't, but it is what it is. No, I mean, everybody loves Suzuki, and they love them for a very good reason. Two of the nicest riders in the paddock, albeit one of them would be an insurance salesman if he wasn't a MotoGP rider. But like, who doesn't love Alex Rins? Who does not love Alex Rins? Absolutely brilliant performance from Alex. You know, Alex Lorenzo basically got in front, just held the lead so brilliantly all race. I did think he would crash out at some point. Thank the Lord he did not, because it was a fairy tale ending for Suzuki. It really was. And you could see how much it means to all of them as well. You know, there's such a tight-knit group at Suzuki. You know, they all work so hard for that team, and they've all put so much effort in over, you know, the last number of years to make that bike as good as it is. And you know, aside from the performance, which was spectacular from Alex Rins, I am so, so sad that they're leaving. I really am. And I profoundly wish if there was any way to keep them in the championship that we would. I really, really do. I think they are a credit to MotoGP. I think they're a credit to the racing on track. And I think both their riders are brilliant ambassadors for the sport as well. One of them's a world champion. One of them has the potential to be a world champion on that bike. And, you know, I'm gonna miss them. I really am. I think every season we've seen something brilliant from Suzuki, and this year has been a very good year performance wise for them. It's funny, they made themselves the best inline four bike on the grid the year they stopped doing it. You know, it's so nonsensical, but no, I love Suzuki, I really do, and I truly hope we see them back soon.
Yeah, I mean, when Alex Rins is on his A game, I feel like nobody can beat him. And it's a little bit like KTM and Miguel Oliveira and Brad Binder, where when one of them is unbeatable and exceptionally great, it's Oliveira, like it is with Suzuki, it's Rins. But usually the more consistent one, which earned Joan Mir the title, and Brad Binder is the more consistent one who gets fifth places, who gets sixth places, you know, something like this, and ends up higher in the world championship. They have a very similar structure, but I feel like that Alex Rins could have been a world champion even this year if the whole Suzuki thing wouldn't be a thing and it would just continue, because they were coming into Europe as one of the title contenders, and I don't want to imagine what did it to not only him, the whole team, that nobody knew what they were going to do next year. And he was really, really spectacular. Joan Mir, on the other hand, you pointed to my joke from
Best joke this season.
it would have probably, it was before the summer break, where I said like if Joan Mir if he had a normal job, he would be an insurance salesman because he's that average. And today showed this as well, because he lost his transponder and nobody cared. It wasn't, nobody even noticed that Joan Mir was in the race when
I
no
thought he crashed out.
nobody missed him. Nobody was like they did with Jake Dixon, even the broadcasting itself with Jake Dixon and Aragon, they always put him up there. They always shown him on camera, you know. Nothing, absolutely fucking nothing. And it was so hilarious to me. Luis Salabay on the broadcast mentioned it a couple of times, but nobody really cared. I mean, I didn't care. I saw it and I wasn't missing him at all. So yeah. And regarding the whole Elon Musk thing, I feel like the perfect opportunity would have been Jeff Bezos. Because if I would have been Jeff Bezos, here's what I would do. I would buy a Formula One team. I would buy like an endurance team. I would buy a MotoGP team, put Amazon Racing on there, and put like a shitload of money in it, that they are hands down the best team, like in Formula One, and now Formula One has the cost cap. But I would invest heavily in my Amazon Prime Racing team and make it like my marketing gig that Amazon is delivering the fastest. And I feel like this is a missed opportunity, but yeah, Jeff Bezos would rather go to space, I guess, which is a lot less cool than what Red Bull is essentially doing in Formula One. And yeah, I feel like if they would do the same in or do the Red Bull thing in MotoGP and in Formula One and like whatever racing there is, I think it would be very beneficial to the brand and it would be very, very funny. But yeah, now I guess it's a little bit late to buy in because everybody from the team already has a new job. Like the structure is already there to tear the whole thing down. Would have been fun, would have been great, but yeah, it is what it is. The cat wants out again. I'm back in a second. You can talk, I hear you, but
No problem.
I
I can imagine Juan Mir delivering your Amazon delivery on a MotoGP bike. That's what's going through my head right now.
yeah,
Oh boy.
the problem is you would have to sign fast riders who actually win, and
He's a world champion.
yeah, but it was like the craziest world championship that I've ever seen because nobody wanted to win it. And like Marc Marquez, if he wasn't injured, he would have won the 2020 World Championship. He probably
Probably.
won the 2021 World Championship, probably the 2022 World Championship, because if there were no injuries and if Honda continued the way they did with the bike in 2019 and 2020, nobody, not Pecco, not Fabio, nobody could have beaten him. My opinion.
Yeah, it's a very fair point. But at the end of the day, it didn't unfold that way. It's given us three of the best years we've ever had in MotoGP, which I'm actually very grateful for. But yeah, I mean, on a slightly serious note, I am actually very surprised that a Jeff Bezos or an Elon Musk hasn't considered this. You know, aside from the reason we enjoy it, motorsport is an excellent form of advertising. We see that with Red Bull, we see that with Mercedes, you know, like for example, these different brands, you have these world famous athletes endorsing the things that you sell. And whether it's I don't know what Elon Musk would promote it as, but say you have like an Amazon Suzuki MotoGP program, that would actually sell really, really well. And you could market that so many different ways. You know, some of Amazon's transponders could go off and you wouldn't miss them. You could have some vans crashing on the turn before the finish. I think it would be great.
Yeah, but I feel like the sport in itself is not popular enough. Like Formula One is popular enough, but the Espeleta family isn't doing a particularly great job of promoting the sport.
Oh, Lord.
And what's the word? Nepotism?
Nepotism.
Nepotism, yeah. I always have to Google it because I only know the German word. But yeah, it's absolutely crazy that the new like safety officer who was running Qatar, Aragon, and the Kazakhstan track is the nephew of Camilo Espeleta. It's absolutely bonkers to me how fucking bad Dorna is because they aren't doing a thing right. I love the move to India. This is like the only thing they did good in they did well in 2022 with their decisions regarding the marketing because they do absolutely fucking nothing. You know those Amazon series All In or Nothing where they go with
All or nothing, yeah.
All or nothing, yeah. Why don't they do something like this in MotoGP? Why are they just relying on Marc Marquez and Valentino Rossi and are not building up new talent? Why are they tearing down the Unlimited series after just 1 year? Continue it. It will pay off after time, and learn from the mistakes and do it better next time. Do more documentaries, make it more accessible. I mean, we already had 1,000 of those conversations, and like with the new, and there was the partner of Camelo's nephew. She's doing something as well. Let me check.
So basically, Borat is in charge of MotoGP safety from next year. Jesus God, you couldn't write this.
Let me
This
check.
is why our sport's a niche sport, because we have such blatant
Yeah.
nepotism in it.
That's really the only explanation I have, because the sport in itself is so good and they're just marketing it. They're not even marketing it. They're just incompetent. Okay, so I had a tweet about it. What they did in 2022 was introducing sprint races without consulting the riders, which to me is almost like criminal, because they
Yeah.
decide that those athletes will do basically double the amount of races. And they announced a race in Saudi Arabia, a country which violates human rights. I mean, you could argue that a lot of countries are violating human rights, which where they are racing already. So, but yeah, it's a bad look for the sport, you know? Then they announced the race in Kazakhstan at a track where Tommy Alfonso Espeleta, Camilo Espeleta's nephew, was the boss at the time. A really bad look for the sport. Then they replaced Franco Uccini with Alfonso Espeleta as a safety officer, and they replaced the Clínica Mobile with the Spanish healthcare provider Quirón Salud. And they did a fan survey where they asked the fans what they wanted. The fans said, we don't want sprint races, and they did sprint races, which is like the most stupid thing about it. And yeah, I don't necessarily know what the fuck they're doing. I just know they're doing it completely wrong. And I feel sorry for everybody who has to work under this family. I mean, Matt Oxley had a great article regarding this, and he is 100% going to lose his paddock pass if he continues criticizing Dorna this way. But he's completely right. It's just that Dorna isn't open to constructive criticism. I mean, how would you feel if someone attacked your family members and you, like, personally, that you're doing bad decisions and just hiring them because they're your family? You wouldn't be amused too, but it's just the wrong way to run a business.
Well, I wouldn't go against basic democracy to start with. You know, Carmelo, I understand you don't like criticism, but you bring a lot of it on yourself here. You know what I'm saying? You know, you brought in the most unpopular measure you possibly could have brought in, and then you're mad when people are mad at you for it. You know, do you understand how this works, Carmelo? They're already doing 20 races in a season. You're adding sprint races onto that. Is it not computing why this is unpopular with you? And then you bring in your nephew to be the safety officer when he ran Kazakhstan? I mean, oh man, Dorna are gonna give me a heart attack one day just out of sheer anger talking about them, because nothing is getting through. I don't understand where the missing link is here. You know, you did a MotoGP. All right, this is the last point I'm going to make because I'll just end up getting really angry and just get myself blacklisted from MotoGP. The point I'm going to make is this: you put out a fan survey. Do you want to see sprint races? Like 85 to 90% of people, if not higher, said no. We do not want to see sprint races for the reasons we've mentioned and more. You then decide to implement sprint races anyway. That is how you become very unpopular, Carmelo. The people who pay to support our sport, the people who pay to go to events, the people who pay, to go to events to cover them as media, they all said they did not want this, and you did it anyway. You know, 2+2, Carmelo, 2+2.
Yeah, I would like to switch gears to Honda because Honda had a terrible weekend. I mean, Marc Marquez is doing wonders on the thing, but he crashed out like in fourth position or third position, something like this.
I think he was 4.
Yeah, it should have been. Yeah, it's funny that it's the same corner where Ogura crashed, but
Conspiracy?
yeah, I mean, it is funny. And I heard things that Mark is like getting a little bit toxic, fighting with the team and yelling and breaking stuff, is angry. And like he was arguing a lot with Emilio Alzamora. He decided to part ways because he was basically not as popular as Rossi, and this messed with his head. And
he's only realizing now.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. And yeah, basically when the whole thing in 2015 happened, that all the shit he got, and he wasn't really bothered because he was winning and he was happy. He was living his best life, rightfully so. And yeah, with this injury, I felt like, or it's supposedly that he's going crazy a little bit and wanted to Alonso Lopez commented on my post. I want to see it.
Oh, what did he say?
We will come stronger. What do we respond? Bet you will. Exclamation point.
I'm trying to think of a remark that won't get us thrown off Instagram.
I mean, Alonso Lopez, I like him a lot. I really, really enjoy his journey. And we will talk about him later. But yeah, I really am rooting for the guy because I like when people do epic shit. I like when Pedro did all the epic shit. I like when Remy did all the epic shit. I like when Alonso Lopez is doing all the epic shit that he's doing right now. And yeah, absolutely love him. I hope that he will be extremely successful. But today was a little bit like he was losing his mind. It was,
yeah.
in my opinion, it looked really, really bad from the outside. He looked very desperate in fighting Pedro for the title of Rookie of the Year. I felt like he really wanted it. But yeah, we will discuss this later because we were in the middle of talking about Mark. So if this is true, I don't know. Those are things that I heard. I cannot confirm this. It's like it could be total bullshit. I mean, I've heard stories that he's doing drugs in his in the club while this is what people tell me. I don't know if it's true. I don't state those as facts. It's like people in my DMs say a lot of stuff.
Leo, is this another banana nightclub thing I need to know about?
No. I think that during his injury break, he was supposedly enjoying himself a little bit. But again, I don't know if this is true. I don't want to make any accusations here which are false or whatever. So yeah, it's just a rumor, I guess. And regarding this whole Marc Marquez topic, Honda is absolutely shit right now. Nobody can ride this bike. And let's suppose Marquez is like almost back at 100%. He is fucking good and he can't do a thing on this bike. And there were supposedly also thoughts about him leaving Honda after his contract and wanting to go to Ducati. And like with Alex Marquez going there, you could see a pattern. It kind of would make sense, but actually, again, I don't know if this is true. I would have to ask some people whose opinion I trust a little bit more than some random dude which is in my DMs. So I don't necessarily know if this is 100% true, but I think it's a fun thing to elaborate on if he indeed wants to leave Honda, which I completely understand because Honda is an absolute shitbox and they do not seem to know what they're doing. They're not even having like a prototype or a direction where they want to develop, which is basically what Alberto Puig said in an interview with Simon Crafer. This you can look up. This is facts, what he said. And yeah, which brings the question up, if you were Ducati, would you, let's say, for the sake of it, Pecco or Enea will leave after 2024, one of them, and you have one free place in your factory team, because Mark won't take anything else but a factory team.
Oh, not a chance.
Would you take Marc Marquez? Or would you promote Jorge Martin? Would you promote Marco Bezzecchi? Would you like build up a new talent? Let's say Pedro Acosta. You know, this is a fun thing to think about.
I have to be totally honest here because it's a fascinating question. And this is me taking all the bias out of it as well. By the way, I'm looking at this purely objectively and nothing more. On the one hand, we have one of the greatest natural talents to ever ride a MotoGP bike in Marc Marquez. The upsides we know in that he is basically an alien. The downsides are the amount of abuse his body has taken over the years is inhumane. And the truth is, we don't know how much more time he has left. Now, he looks a lot better, and to his credit, he's had some brilliant results towards the end of the season. But if I'm Ducati and I'm debating over Marc Marquez and potentially a new star, whether that's Pedro Acosta, Bezzecchi, Martin, whoever else that is, I'm probably keeping it in house and I'm promoting a star over Mark. I think it's worked very well for Ducati so far, first and foremost. And secondly, you have riders like Bezzecchi and Acosta who have no physical abuse. You know, they have their whole careers ahead of them to mold onto that bike and to win championships and to win races. The problem with Mark, there's a lot of things that people have to consider here, okay? Brilliant rider, but he brings a lot of physical limitations. You know, his body can only take so much now at this point. And the problem as well that you have to figure is he going to get on with everybody in Ducati too? We know Mark's ego, we know his personality. He is going to want to control that program, and he's going to want his input to go onto a bike that probably only he can ride. Now, if you're Ducati, you have to consider whether the benefits outweigh the risks. And if I'm honest, I just don't think they do. I think Mark will stay at Honda for the rest of his career because he's the man there. He's the A side there. He will always dictate the direction of the program, and he will always be the main player there. If he goes to Ducati, he is going to have to ride a bike that is basically Pecco Bagnaya's bike, and there's no guarantee he will do that very well. I don't think, if I'm Ducati, it's not something I go for. Would you go for it?
The upside would be the marketing effect, because if you have either Pecco or Enea in place as your number one rider, and let's assume they are winning titles, they're winning races, everything is perfect, but just one of them leaves. Signing Marc Marquez wouldn't be a bad idea from a business perspective, because he brings in a lot of fans, he brings in a lot of brand exposure, which is beneficial, and you still have your winning rider. On the other hand, you are completely right with you don't know what's Mark's physical condition back then, especially like when you know you are one bad crash away from retirement. It's a risk to take, and if he is willing to accept like a Valentino Rossi position inside Ducati, where he isn't the number one rider, and like Rossi basically accepted it in 2013 when he came back that Lorenzo is the number one rider, and then had Maverick Vinales, made space for Fabio in the factory team. If Mark is able to accept this kind of role and maybe even go to Pramac, which I don't see, but could be. I mean, would you rather ride a Pramac Ducati or a Honda right now? I would take the Pramac. And yeah, from a business perspective, it wouldn't be dumb, but I feel like it would be a little bit unfair. Let's say Marco Bezzecchi, if he continues to develop like this, towards Marco Bezzecchi, it would be a little bit unfair, I feel like.
I think you make a very interesting point there. I think if you have an excellent satellite outfit like Pramac, and we've seen how well they've performed this season, and I think if you go to Mark and you offer him that, and he's willing to do that, I definitely think you get rid of Johan Zarco to accommodate Mark, because I think that would make a lot of sense. The marketing you've already mentioned would be ridiculous. He would have a brilliant bike and he would have a chance to do his thing there. The thing is, if we're talking about the factory team, if I'm, Davide Tardozzi or whoever would make that call, I'm not sure who would make that decision, but whoever makes that call, if I'm offered Marc Marquez to join the factory team, I can see why they would take him, but I would not be paying him anywhere near what I'm paying him now. The contract would have to be so scaled back that there's no damage if something happens, because he could upset team balance. He could always have a serious crash and eventually retire. And there's just a lot of risks that come with signing Marc Marquez now at this stage in his career. I can see why it would be beneficial, especially if, say, Bagnaia or Bastianini left. But I think the upsides of taking in a Bezzecchi or a Martin or even a Pedro Acosta, I think the upside of doing that has very little downside. Whereas I think with Mark, there is a little bit of ceiling, but the whole floor is empty beneath you if it goes wrong.
Yeah, it could be. But luckily, we have time until 2025, unless Honda will release him or Ducati will buy him out of the contract, which I don't see. And yeah, regarding the whole speculation that Mark is getting a little bit toxic, I mean, who knows if this is true? He's still performing at a relatively high level considering the circumstances. So yeah, who knows? It's a little bit weird to me that he fired Emilio Alzamora, but out of all the Hondas, he is doing a phenomenal job. Nobody is even coming close, like to the points, and he is riding in the top 5, fighting for podiums. It's remarkable what he's doing. And yeah, anything else at Honda, I'm excited for Joan Mir, because if Honda finds a direction, I've heard from people that I trust that they are very, very optimistic about Joan Mir at Honda, which personally I don't see, because I feel like Joan Mir is a little bit overhyped because of his World Championship, which is a World Championship, of course, but to me it's a little bit like an odd one, because the whole year was so chaotic. He never was like the dominant rider that year, like Pecco was this year, like Fabio was last year, like Mark was in his prime. And yeah, but that's a different topic. I don't know if Joan Mir will be successful, but if they find a direction, everything is possible for Honda. And maybe they get some good inputs from Joan Mir, from Alex Rins. And yeah, Taka Nakagami is valuable that he stays there. It's valuable for them that Marc Marquez was riding there. So yeah, but right now Honda is definitely the worst bike on the grid. They are down fucking bad.
Worse than the KTM?
Yeah. Because
interesting.
KTM is an odd one, because the bike in itself on Saturdays is okay, and you need a lot of experience to ride it, because my theory is that the steel frame is completely different to the aluminum frame, and you need a lot of time on the thing to understand it, because there were 3 riders in the history of KTM and MotoGP who have been successful, which is obviously Brad Binder, obviously Miguel Oliveira, and Pol Espargaro. All those riders have multiple years of experience on the steel frame, and all the riders who failed at KTM came in like from a different type of bike. Johan Zarco came from Yamaha, Remy and Raoul came from a Moto2 bike. Danilo Petrucci came from a Ducati. Ico Lecuona, he came from a steel frame in Moto2 as well, and he was doing good in my opinion. And yeah, there were a lot of riders which failed at KTM, even though they are great riders, because I feel like that the steel frame is difficult to work with. But once you figured it out, you're in a situation where the KTM is good on a Sunday. It's not great. It's not a Ducati, but it's good. And you are trying to make up the bad Saturdays, because the qualifying is their weak point. If they qualify in the front row, you can almost guarantee a top 5, like Brad Binder did in Japan. He had a good race in Aragon. And now even in Valencia, he had a very, very, very good race, considering all the circumstances. If he was on the front row, he would have won the thing by a mile, because he was stuck behind Pecco with a lot of situations where you thought, oh, fuck, he's going to wipe him out. And he was losing a lot of time overtaking, because Valencia in itself is a difficult track to overtake, and MotoGP in track is difficult to overtake. And I feel like once you figured it out, then you can be good over a season, like Brad Binder is. And then you have those weekends where the KTM is working brilliantly. For example, Mandalika and Thailand for Miguel Oliveira, and Qatar for Brad Binder. You had Aragon, you had Japan, you had Valencia. Those are like the good races for a KTM. So I feel like KTM right now is in a better position because they have Brad Binder. And if I was KTM, I would have kept Miguel Oliveira. I wouldn't be doing the Jack Miller thing because of my opinion about the steel frame and the time it takes. So good thing for Jack Miller that he has a 2-year contract. But if I was KTM, I would give my riders all the time in the world. And the cat wants in again. Yeah. Yeah, it's like typical cat behavior. But to finish my point about KTM, I feel like they're in a better situation right now because they have a very good rider in Brad Binder, who is capable of winning a world championship if they provide him the right bike, like Marc Marquez is. But KTM has a direction where they're going. They have a new frame, which apparently benefited them on a corner exit and a little bit diminishes the corner entry, which is kind of the problem of the KTM, and the turning as well. And the turning in Valencia is very, very important. So you could argue that the new frame also improves the turning, but then you could argue again that it's one of 5 weekends where the KTM just works fine, and the rest of the year they're shit. But with all the engineers coming from Red Bull Racing to KTM, and the simple fact that they have a direction where they're going and they know what they want is a better sign to me that what Honda is doing at the moment with constantly new riders. I mean, KTM is doing the same thing with new riders, but Paul isn't really a new rider. And yeah, with Augusto, I don't understand it, but yeah, that's a different topic in itself. And I don't understand what was going down with Miguel Oliveira there, because if I was KTM, I would have kept the whole thing as it is right now and replaced Raul Fernandez with Paul Espargaro. That would have been my plan. But now it's a little bit difficult, but still, for those reasons, I feel like KTM is in a better position than Honda is right now.
That's a very interesting argument and a very convincing one as well. I think with Honda, I think the addition of Joan Mir will be a big benefit because he's a much better team player. And I think with Joan Mir, there's a lot more guarantee that you're going to get someone who is actively pushing in the same direction as everybody else, which is a massive help to have in the garage. With the KTM argument, I do see what you mean. I mean, even Brad Binder said today that bike they gave him for today is the best bike he's had all year. So at least with KTM, there are clear up signs of improvement and benefit. So yeah, maybe you're onto something there.
Yeah, but who knows? I mean, KTM always has like a good bike in a couple of situations. I don't know if you're there because I just
Oh, don't worry, I'm here.
okay, because I'm just seeing your profile pic and not your camera. But yeah, I will just continue talking because with KTM, there you go. With KTM, it's always weird. You have like those 5 weekends where they are good. You had it in 2020 where KTM looked brilliantly sometimes. Then you had in 2021 where was the stretch where Miguel Oliveira won in Barcelona. He almost won in Germany, which was a miracle in itself to even touch Marc Marquez in Germany. And then they were dipping again. Yeah, so we will see. At the beginning of the season with Qatar, everybody thought, oh my God, Brad Binder's a championship contender if he continues like this. And what happens? Nothing. And the benefit with Brad Binder is he is always consistent. And if you could give Brad Binder the bike that he had now in Valencia, and the same bike he had in Aragon, the same bike he had in Japan, like for the whole season, I can definitely see him winning the championship, not necessarily by winning 7 races, but by being consistently in the top 3. I could definitely see Brad Binder because the guy is a very, 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 very capable rider. He is the only world champion that I can remember in Moto3 in recent years who isn't Spanish or isn't Italian. I can't remember. Danny Kent, okay, Danny Kent in 2015, okay. But like apart from that, everybody's Spanish or Italian, and Brad Binder did it. So yeah. But what he is doing is always remarkable, but it's always a little bit too late. Like in Moto2, it was too late. This year, it's too late. And this is like KTM, because KTM doesn't figure out how to set up the bike until it's too late, or how in which direction they're going. Because in the middle of the season, some rider who I recently or frequently talk to who rides for KTM said that they don't know what the fuck they're doing and which direction or what's going on. And yeah. And now apparently they have a direction. So this is a step forward. But then next year, the next problem occurs and they still don't know what they're doing. So KTM is an odd one. So I don't necessarily know if I would say they have found their way, because in the mid-season test, a lot of people were testing things for 2023, where KTM, what I heard, was testing like a base setup for their bike. So the other ones are already ahead for 2023. So yeah, it's a little bit of a how do you call it when there's always like this bad downward spiral?
And an inevitability.
There could be, I don't know, because translated from Germany, it would be a devil's cycle.
Ah, right, okay, yeah, yeah. I think,
Google
I
it.
think, I think with KTM, there's always a sense that trouble's never far away. Basically, that there's always a likelihood that something bad's going to happen. So I know what you mean. I
And
do think that I think with
shortly, it's a vicious cycle in English.
vicious cycle. That's it. Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I think KTM, in terms of the riders they have, will be in a better position next season because they have 2 very hard workers in Jack Miller and Paul Espargaro. And I do think they will help a lot with testing and development. But I'm interested to see where they go. It'll be curious to see whether they can give Brad Binder that same bike all season next year, or if it'll just be the same old KTM. But either way, I'm excited.
Yeah. And quickly, I would like to give a shout out to both Tech 3 boys, Remy and Raul. They did a good race. They had a good farewell to their
Yeah.
team. Both collected points. So good for them. Today was an easy day to crash. A lot of riders crashed, and they were staying on the bike and doing some good work. Also recovering a lot of places because KTM is shit in qualifying. And yeah, we had a horrible weekend for Aprilia with some technical issues, and like the second half of the season for Aprilia is going on a downward spiral, you know. It's
It's just been miserable, really. There's no real positive spin I can put on it, to be honest with you. Aleix had to retire after like 2 laps. Maverick Vinales was nowhere to be seen. It's definitely not the end Aprilia would have wanted. I think the first half of the season was anything and everything they ever could have dreamed for, but they will certainly hope next season that they end better than they did this year.
Yeah, they were basically, I feel like, missing data, and they're now collecting data on the new bike, and next year they will be better because they have the same riders, they can continue on what they're doing, and of course they have the satellite team which will help them in with data collection. By the way, those liveries are horrendous. I fucking hate them.
Oh,
They even the new sponsorship I absolutely hate because I feel like
horrible.
it's a second rich energy thing where they will go bankrupt in before Jerez, and I feel like that they're just burning some investors' money while they can. And this company, I would be 99% sure isn't making any profit right now. And in this economic day and age, this is deadly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just seems like such a suspicious thing that they're just going to go under before the fourth round of the season. But it's interesting to see. It's definitely something I'll be keeping an eye on.
Yeah, they're like a Romanian company, so maybe Andrew Tate will show up at a MotoGP.
The top G's behind Moto2.
I feel like this could be also some money laundering thing, who knows?
Probably.
And also, Jake Miller. Before the race, I would have said Jake Miller is my favorite to win because his weekend was exceptional. He wasn't a
Very
good
good.
the whole race, but it didn't materialize. Whatever was going wrong went wrong. But yeah, it could have been a better end to his Ducati time because he had a good end to the season. A really, really, I mean, except the crash with Alex Marquez through no fault of his own. He had a very good ending to the season, and it's a little bit sad because he's a likable character, and I feel bad for him that he has to ride the KTM next year. And yeah, it could have been better, you know. But yeah, at least he was in a good position, and hopefully he's leaving Ducati with a good feeling that he tried everything he could to get on the podium, and it didn't happen. So he wasn't fighting for a championship. He wasn't. He was basically fighting for third place, but it was a long shot in itself, I believe. But yeah.
Yeah, look, I gotta be honest, I will miss seeing Jack in the Ducati garage because I think he's been a brilliant addition to that team. I don't think anybody will argue otherwise. In terms of the race, very unfortunate ending. I'd have loved to have seen Jack sign out of his Ducati career with a very good podium at Valencia, and he did look on course for it. Unfortunately, as you said, just crashed out and just not the ending that he would have wanted. But I think he leaves Ducati with his head held high and for very good reason. You know, Jack's always been a brilliantly hard worker. He's an excellent teammate. And I think he should be credited for that. I think he's been a brilliant, as I said, I think he's been a brilliant addition to that paddock. I think he's been a brilliant addition to the Ducati factory team. And I think there's been a lot of times when Ducati morale was very low, and a character like Miller has probably kept them going in those tough times. So Jack Miller should be very proud of himself, and I hope for his sake he does brilliantly at KTM just to see that he can do that. But overall, he should be very proud of himself. One disappointing crash does not define anything.
Yeah. And now switching gears to Moto2, we have a new champion. Augusto Fernandez did everything he needed to do. The whole season was basically not a spectacular season like Remy and Raul did last year, but he was always rock solid.
Yeah.
And basically the same Ogura was up until Sepang. But both of them had a really, really good season. He won a couple of races. In the middle part of the season, it looked like nobody could beat him. And yeah, but then he was consistent. He had the one fuck up in Australia, but as we discussed last time, I mean, those things happen when you ride on the limit. It's the same with the Jack Miller crash, the same with the Marc Marquez crash, or whoever crashes. You know, when you're riding on the limit, those things happen. And Ogura just fumbled the title away in Malaysia because he had it like with one hand and four fingers. And if he didn't crash, because the crash in Sepang was utterly stupid, as we discussed last time, if he didn't crash, he would have been in a much better situation now in Valencia. But his race was basically what I expected. Either way, he went down fighting. I mean, there were two outcomes for him: win the Grand Prix and hope for the best, or crash. But I don't mean for the crash, because what else was there for him to accomplish? A third place, a second place wouldn't be what he needed today. So yeah, it is what it is, but he really fumbled the title away in Sepang, and I feel like this still haunts him, because he, in this post-race interview, he seemed really, really sad, and I can't imagine that he was feeling sad about his race today. More of the situation, which is rather unfortunate for him. And yeah. But at the end of the day, Augusto is the deserved champion. Aki Ayo did it back-to-back. Hats off to him. He is making champions out of good riders. Let's say it this way. Because Remy was a good rider, but nowhere near the level he was in 2021. And Augusto Fernandez was a good rider, but nowhere near the level he was in 2022 before he went to Aki Ayo. And I feel like, yeah, he is doing an incredible job. Hats off to him.
Yeah, I mean, Aki Ayo is such a brilliant mentor of young talent. You know, we've said this quite a few times throughout the season, actually. And I just think whatever it is Aki Ayo's doing, he seems to instill such a sense of belief in the riders that he works with, that they just go out and they perform to their absolute maximum every single time. And that's as much a credit to Augusto Fernandez as well as it is to Aki Ayo. You know, the second Ayo world champion in a row. I mean, the stats don't lie. The guy is obviously ridiculously good at what he does, and his team are the best team in Moto2. They have been for about 3 or 4 years now. I think Augusto Fernandez deserves a lot of credit. Like you said, he went out, did what he had to do, held up his end of the bargain, and performed the way he was meant to. Ogura, I'm very sad for. I would have loved to have seen a Japanese rider win Moto2, especially on a Honda Team Asia bike. I think it would have been great for that country. I think it would have been great for Asia as a whole, especially given the fanatical devotion Asian fans have to MotoGP and how much they contribute to our community. I think it just would have been brilliant. But look, either way, Iagor's had a great season, and realistically, 2 crashes cost him a title, and that could happen to anybody. I certainly don't think this defines him. I think he'll go again next season, arguably as the favourite for the title, depending on your own opinion. But Augusto Fernandez, massive congratulations. He should be very happy. Ogura, keep your head up. You will have another chance.
My opinion is that Pedro Acosta and Alonso Lopez are title favorites because of the same. I don't know if we discussed it or I talked about it with Riley on the Remy Gardner story episode we did a couple of days ago. But I feel like to recover from such a mental knockout like Ogura suffered in Sepang is so incredibly difficult.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he will carry this defeat through the whole winter, and then to come back stronger will be rather difficult. But could have been. It depends on how he works mentally. If he is mentally extremely tough and he will learn from this, he sure can be better. If it kind of it's a destructive thought, then it will hinder him in winning the title. So yeah, who knows? We will see next season. But to me, Pedro Acosta, the way he rode today was incredible. He was so fucking good the whole weekend. He was so calm. He was fast, and even the whole shit what was going on with Alonso Lopez, where I felt like Alonso was a little bit losing his head and all over the place to win the Rookie of the Year, where it got to a point, especially the turn 2 incident, where it was a little bit dangerous. I mean, it was kind of gangster how Pedro turned the bike in, and while he was leaning into the corner, he was shaking his head like, you motherfucker, what are you doing? But despite this, Pedro stayed calm and let the race develop, and he was all. And I feel like this is what Aki Ayo does to riders. He makes them think in a calm and structured way with little to no emotion, you know? During the race, you aren't allowed to have too much emotions. You are supposed to work like a machine, you know, and bite down on that mouthpiece and go, you know? And yeah, this is what Pedro did. He learned a lot this season. He crashed a lot at the beginning, and then towards the end, he was getting really, really good. And I feel like next season, it's only about to get better. He had this horrible injury, which he recovered from. He had this new bike, which takes a lot of maturity to ride. And also Alonso Lopez. Alonso Lopez came in at Le Mans, and he was a motherfucker from the beginning. He is so incredibly good, and he should get only better too. So those two are my early favorites for the Moto2 title. Who knows? And also Celestino Vietti. This may sound a little crazy, but let's pretend Celestino Vietti goes into the winter break and rethinks all the things that went down or went bad, and fixes whatever happens inside his head, because the dude is a phenomenal rider, but something is in his head where he basically lost all confidence. And if you're in this situation, there's nobody better to be around than Pecco Bagnaia, Franco Morbidelli, Valentino Rossi, Uccio. Pablo Nieto is the team boss, right? It's Pablo, huh?
Yeah, I believe so.
The one Nieto. Those are all incredibly competent people who are very, very knowledgeable inside of motorcycle racing. And maybe he needs to go to a psychologist, and like Fabio did, to a sports psychologist, and fixes his brain. Because when Celestino Vietti is as good as he was in Qatar, or as he was in Catalonia or in Argentina, I see him winning a title, because he is that good. He's so fast. And again, I think he learned a lot this season, or has the opportunity to learn a lot from this season. And the same with Ogura. It depends a little on how he approaches the winter break and how he is structured mentally. But I can see him being in the title picture as well, which what doesn't help him is that he got himself a long lap penalty for Qatar, which is kind of crazy, because let me read it to you. For disobeying marshals and not responding immediately when shown the black flag with orange disc, he has been given a double long lap penalty for the next race for Qatar. You can see this on the MotoGP Twitter, where there's the official statement from the stewards. So let's say the Qatar race is done and dusted already for him, because he's ain't gonna win it. He's not gonna be on the podium with a double long lap. So his season will start off on the wrong foot, almost guaranteed. But Alonso Lopez did the same did it in Australia with a long lap. He didn't have a double long lap, but he had a long lap. So it's still possible, but it's highly unlikely. So yeah, I can see Celestino Vietti playing a role. It's
Yeah.
they're in the same category, Ogura and Celestino Vietti, where they have a lot to work on mentally during the winter break. But if they can bounce back from it, they can bounce back from it really, really strong, because they have all the tools in their toolbox to be successful. And yeah, then you have like Albert Arenas by riding for Aki Ayo's team. Maybe Aki Ayo can pull a rabbit out of his head with him. So yeah, the title should be interesting. But to me, my early title favorites are Pedro Acosta and Alonso Lopez. And between those two, I trust Aki Ayu a little bit more. So I would lean towards Pedro, but they are both incredibly fast.
Yeah, they are. And look, there's quite a lot to cover here, so I kind of burn through this as quickly as I can. Pedro Acosta, just out of this world good. I don't think I really need to expound any more on that. Just a phenomenal performance from him. He is the Lord after all. I expect a little less. But it's Pedro Acosta. He was always going to be this good, and I'm delighted that he won because it was a brilliant performance. Alonso Lopez, I think he showed a bit of his immaturity today. I think we tend to forget that he is a rookie in this class. He only joined about halfway through, roughly, and he set the standard so high for himself that I think anytime he makes a mistake, it's almost going to be amplified now. But I just think it was a bit unnecessary from him, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Leo. I think he was so desperate to win Rookie of the Year over Pedro that he was willing to do, in his mind, anything that it took to win that. And I think instead of racing his normal race, which may well have won him the race in the end, he decided to get overly aggressive, overly exuberant, and he just got himself into trouble that he didn't really need to. He crashed out just by losing his composure, really. Now, at the end of the day, that's something he's going to learn, and it's something he will get better at as he matures in that class. He will learn not to make those mistakes, and he will get better as time goes on. Now, as for Celestino Vietti, because this is a very interesting topic, I do think next year Celestino Vietti could make another really good run at the title. I do agree with you on that. The question is because Celestino Vietti's failure, so to speak, is not like Iogura's failure, where Iogura's was just a couple of crashes. Celestino Vietti completely capitulated. I think he DNF'd 9 times, I saw. I think that's how many times he didn't finish a race. And that is profoundly problematic for Celestino Vietti and for anybody else. The first thing all he needs to improve on is finishing the race. If he'd have finished most of those races, he probably still would have been in for title contention somewhere. I'm not saying he would have won, because I think Augusto Fernandez has been sensational. But I think if he'd have just kept his composure and finished most of those races, he still would have been up there. Now, that being said, he was a lot of people's title favourite. I think he may have even been my title favourite before this season started. And I think he has the talent to push it further and to go for the title. I do agree with you. This is why I always love the beginning of the new season, because I'm intrigued to see where he goes from here and what he does. If he can learn and develop, then Celestino Vietti has as good a chance as anybody.
Yeah. Regarding Alonso Lopez, he crashed into turn 11, I believe, which also was an odd crash because he was overshooting the corner. He was going
Yeah.
wide, then lost the front where it looked like he didn't want to accept that he was going to lose this small.
Yeah. He was trying to fight the chatter of the front, and it just cut out from under him.
And there's another thing I would like to cover, which is Fermin Aldi had a great race in fourth position.
Great race.
Went a little bit under the radar, but a very, very good one. And Tony Arbolino also had a good race and a good end to the season. He could be, if he fixes a little bit on his racecraft, I feel like he's good at the beginning of races, but towards the end, he's kind of losing it a little bit. If he fixes that, the sky's the limit for him. And Cambobier was in an incredible position where he overtook Augusto Fernandez for a second, and then he crashed out. And this is basically the story of his Moto2 career, where he crashes out every time he's in the top 5, which is sad, but that's basically the reason why he's up to Moto America next year and not up to go to MotoGP. Because I feel like the Honor would love to have an American rider, and even if he was really good, they would try to make something work with him. But yeah, sadly, it didn't materialize. It would have been a great ending, but I wish him nothing but the best for the future. Hopefully, he will be successful once again in Moto America. And yeah, it's a little bit sad, but good race for him while it lasted, and good race for Fermin. And Gomez had a good race as well, and he will apparently be replacing Antonelli for 2023 in the team, in the Valentino Rossi team. So he's a talent, because if I remember correctly, his first race on a Moto2 bike in general was in Sepang. The first time in his life he sat on a Moto2 bike, and he's already beating guys like Zonta van den Gerberg. He's beating guys like Nicola Antonelli, who are rookies, yes, but who had a whole season on the Moto2 bike, you know?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's just the reality of it. Gomez has had a very promising start to his Moto2 career. Like you said, to come into a class at Sepang and still come in and beat guys like Zonta and guys like Nicolo Antonelli, it tells you a lot about the raw talent that you can see in front of yourself. And I think it's a very interesting decision to replace Nicolo Antonelli. But at the same time, I can kind of see it as well. I mean, like, at the end of the day, I'm not one to question Valentino Rossi and anything in this life, let alone his eye for talent. It's clear that if this is the case, he sees something in him. And I think if he can mold him, he could mold him into an excellent Grand Prix rider. If anything, I think this is an exciting X factor for next season, because if a kid like Gomez has the chance to work with Valentino, sky could be the limit.
Yeah, and you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe Nicola Antonelli didn't want to continue. Maybe he said, fuck this shit, I'm not feeling healthy, and I'm mentally healthy in Moto2. I don't want all of this. Maybe, because it's kind of a strange thing that it happens so late in the season. Maybe it's just because Gomez was there and he was so good, and they said, fuck you, we will take him. Maybe also this was their only option, because Antonelli said, hey, I can't do this anymore. You don't know what's going on behind the curtain there, you know? So yeah. Sad, but it surprised me a little bit, because he was part of the Riders Academy for a long time, and Valentino Rossi is not somebody who throws people out after a year like KTM does.
Yeah, it's very, very true. The only thing I can say is that if this is the case and this is happening and Antonelli's going to the CEV Championship, then there's a good reason behind it. Like you said, Valentino Rossi does not part with riders very easily, and he certainly doesn't do it very frequently. So if this is happening, I can reasonably assure people that it's happening for a reason.
Yeah. And on to Moto3. We had a very, very unusual Moto3 race, but the race in itself to me was very interesting. My girlfriend thought it wasn't particularly interesting. I thought it was very interesting, because of the pure fact that Izan Guevara's raw pace is absolutely crazy. It's bonkers. The way he ripped the Moto3 field apart in the first 3 laps of the race is incredible. And incredible seems to be Izan's favorite word when you listen to his post-race press conferences. It's nice, incredible. And it feels like every Spanish rider has like one word that they pick out. Marc Marquez likes to say it's true that. And yeah, Izan has the incredible, and I can't remember more, but when you listen to him, you see a pattern there. I should make,
Very happy's the big one. I am very happy.
yeah. And I should make a compilation of those things from the post-race interviews. In the
Yeah,
winter,
that would actually be pretty good.
yeah, unfortunately, I can't use those videos because of Dorna. So I have to post it on BadMotoGP Memes 3. Speaking
Thanks, Dorna.
Speaking about it, I have a really, really fun video that I will going to post right now on BadMotoGP Memes 3 before we discuss the whole Moto3 race. I have all the memes from today. It's bad. Okay, this one. This is it. Okay, it should be on BadMotoGP Memes 3 any minute, so you can check it out live and tell me what you think about it.
Live reaction.
Yeah, I had it finished on Saturday, but I didn't want to post it on the race weekend. So I thought, okay, why not wait until like Monday, Tuesday, whatever, because then I won't have any time. Okay, now it's posted. You have to listen to it with sound.
Oh, this is sensational.
I don't know how I got this idea, but yeah, I got it. And I was editing it for like 50 minutes. Yeah.
Leo, for next season, you've got to show me how to make memes so I can do this as well.
Yeah, of course. Do you have a meme page? I feel like this is only beneficial to the whole MotoGP community. I don't feel like there's any competition. And regarding podcasts as well, I mean, the Everything Motor Racing podcast, I listened to it on my way home recently, and I loved it. I mean, we are having our podcast, but it's good to make content. There's no competition because when let's take the meme example. There's another meme page. There won't be a person who says, okay, I'm not going to follow you because I have this meme page now. They're maybe following both and sharing with friends, and they're bringing the whole meme culture up. And the same with the podcast. The more podcasts there is about MotoGP, the better, because everybody has a different aspect of doing it and reaching different people. And when they all grow, the MotoGP world grows, which at the end benefits the content creators in itself. And if Dorna wasn't kicking us between the legs all the time, then we would be in a better place right now.
Dorna, you're killing the community.
They are, and they don't even realize it. So I hope you do a meme page. I really love seeing different memes because I feel like a couple of meme pages are maybe copying a little bit of my style, I would argue, but no offense to them. And yeah, like my favorite meme page, which isn't BadMotoGP memes, is Depression GP. I absolutely love it because all the raccoons and all the shit, you know,
They do great work.
it's so hilarious and it's totally different, you know. I never see any memes like this, you know. And yeah, I really, really love it. And yeah, the memes they posted today. Give me a second.
Yeah, there was one about Augusto Fernandez drinking from water. So
No, I'm not talking about this one. I'm talking about this Prosecco Pecco enjoying his championship party with the raccoon. I
nice.
was laughing so hard. Or Remy leaving KTM like a wild mushroom toxic. absolutely hilarious to me. So yeah, I like those stuff, you know. And if you or if anybody thinks they have a good approach of making something, do it like your own way, not copying anybody else, because this way it won't work. A, because you are not as good as somebody else, you're only as good as you are. So if you don't follow if you're just following the footsteps of somebody else, you're not making your own footmarks. So metaphorically speaking, you know what I mean? And yeah, if you have a good approach on something, do it. If you don't, then don't. And today I had a situation where I was looking through my Instagram because I was looking for something, and I stumbled upon MotoGP struggles. And MotoGP Struggles was a meme page which basically was coming up the same time I was. So the admin, she was from Serbia, I believe. One of those countries, you know. I don't remember if it's Serbia, if it's Slovenia, if it's whatever, you know. Um, but one of those countries. And we were texting about MotoGP. It was really awesome. And she was doing amazing content, but totally different than I was. But it was more like video format. So check out MotoGP Struggles. Unfortunately, she stopped posting like last season somewhere because I guess she lost the motivation or whatever. And it's really sad to me because I really enjoyed the content, but it is what it is. You can't force them, you know. But those things are like funny to me. If somebody makes like their own style of memes or whatever, you know, could be like Sofa Racer on Twitter is another example. I really enjoy it. Most of the stuff, obviously, not everything, because it's just funny thing, but just on Twitter, you know. And yeah, so I can encourage everybody to start it. It's sometimes a little bit frustrating when you go from the fan perspective a little bit behind the scenes, because you see how shitty this thing is run by Dorna. But you know, you live in your little fan bubble where everything is perfect. But then once you're outside of it, once you're outside of the matrix, those what is it? Is it the blue pill or the red pill? Which one you take?
I think it's the red pill. Are you quoting Andrew Tate on this podcast?
Oh, I'm not.
You know that's his whole thing, breaking out of the matrix.
I never listened. Even the podcast with Sugar Sean O'Malley, I didn't listen to because to me, Andrew Tate is an absolute idiot. I mean, he's very polarizing, but to me what it comes down to is like his stupid hustlers university where he's charging people money to be successful and is preaching about all these success stories. And I saw a YouTube video one time where somebody bought it and made a whole breakdown, and basically he was advertising it with breaking out of the rat race and doing make money for yourself. And then things come like okay, you get money when you bring other people into the university, which is a pyramid scheme. Then the things you learn there are supposedly things like Amazon affiliate things, which isn't necessarily what I would understand under breaking out of a rat race. But yeah, if people enjoy it, go buy it, make yourself happy, let him buy another Bugatti. But I think it's stupid. And so no, I'm not quoting him, but back to the topic.
Thank God.
When you look inside of the paddock and talk with people who work there, and you know, the whole financial struggle, everything what's going on there, it's sad to hear as a fan. But there's nothing anybody can do about changing it. And this is actually a topic I would like to tackle a little bit in the winter break. I don't know if I will be able to do it, but I'm looking into making like 10-minute videos of MotoGP where I'm talking about a certain subject or whatever. And yeah, one thing I'm very interested in is, where does the money go? because I talked with Rocco Landers a couple of days ago, and he was like, he was offered the Moto2 race in Valencia in the European Championship. And he said it was like $20,000 or $30,000 just for one race weekend. He had to pay to be in the team.
Wow.
So, and a whole season is like 300,000 in the European Championship for Moto2, you know? And so I asked myself, where's the money going? Because let's pretend you are a rider and I'm a team. You give me your money so you can race for my team. And now I have your money and I need the money too to finance the whole thing. So, and I get money from sponsors. So where's the money going? Is it going to, I guess it's everything, but it goes probably to the people who work there. It goes like, for example, to Kalex, if you want to buy a motorcycle, it will go to the promoter. It will go to whatever. So I'm very curious on where the heck the money is going. And because Matt Oxley, the way he started his article was savage as fuck. He was saying, like, back in the day, motorcycle racing was, he was saying back in the day, motorcycle racing was structured in a way where the promoters were getting all the money and getting filthy rich of riders risking their lives. Then it got better over time, and now the Espeleta family is getting filthy rich of the lives of young riders and the money of families and all of this, you know. You should really look it up. Go to Matt Oxley on Twitter, and he probably has the link in his bio where you can find his website. And then there's this article about trying to learn the word nepotism.
Yeah,
nepotism. So it's called, it's a family affair, is it called, I believe. And so how much is essentially going to Dorna? You know, this is the things I'm kind of interested in. Is Dunlop paying Dorna as a tire supplier, or is Dunlop getting money from teams, for example? I don't know. I want to find those things out, and I try to be a little bit more of a serious content creator there. And I feel like this could work, but I have no video editing skills. I mean, I have some connections, obviously, where I could ask riders, I could ask journalists, I could ask people who work for teams, for MotoGP. This all is possible for me, but I have no clue on how to edit a video, how to produce a video correctly. So yeah, maybe someone from the community can help me. I don't fucking know how to do it, but if I have the time, besides my work, my personal life, and all of the shit, you know, then I would love to do something like this. But, you know, you really need to be passionate about it. Like, for example, memes. I'm kind of passionate about it because I find myself pretty funny. And you have to be passionate the same way, otherwise it won't work. And with such a substantial amount of work there, it's difficult when you have a lot of other things going on. And this is something I would like to do over the winter.
Yeah, we shall fix it over the winter, ladies and gentlemen. Serious investigative and journalism content is coming your way from the BadMotoGP channel in 2023.
Yes. And back to Moto3, where I think it's very, very interesting, the race between Izan Guevara and Deniz Öncü, because let's be honest, the rest wasn't necessarily interesting. And to me, it all came down to two things. Izan Guevara's pace has been great all year. And the question was, is Deniz Öncü able to keep up with him in the later stages of the race? Because when you remember Aragon, he was hitting the extra gear in the last 5 laps and nobody could follow him. Even Ayumu Sasaki wasn't able to follow him anymore. And Ayumu Sasaki is a very capable rider. He was in his slipstream, which basically makes up for, let's say, 3/10 or half a second over a lap. And he was able to break this slipstream, which is so impressive. And yeah, in Valencia, there's obviously a short straight. So I was interested in how Deniz will respond there. He responded great. And then the second part is how this last lap battle would work out, because obviously you have the last corner, but this is kind of an obvious one, and he chose to overtake him earlier, which was very, very interesting. And to me, no fault. I wouldn't blame him for choosing the early overtakes. I saw people like, why don't you stay behind and wait for the last corner? I mean, yes, in hindsight, everybody is smarter, but in this situation, I felt like he was doing everything right. Just Izan Guevara was better this day. And how fucking cold was Izan Guevara into this last corner, where Deniz Öncü was defending on the inside. He was like, fuck you, I will get you on the outside. Do your stupid little thing on the inside. And he was basically the same he did in Jerez, where he was on the outside and accelerating. He was just flying past him and winning the race. Izan is just on another level this year. And Deniz Öncü was just beaten by a better man, but it could have gone either way. And if it wasn't Izan Guevara and it was any lesser rider, then maybe Deniz could have won. And I see a very, very promising future for him, because in Red Bull KTM IO, he has a very, 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 very good structure. And let's pretend he is successful there next year, wins maybe a race or two, even the championship could be possible. Then he has this automatic path to Moto2 when, let's say, Pedro wins the championship and goes to MotoGP, not to KTM, fingers crossed. Then there is a spot in Moto2, and it could be beneficial for him. And I see him being more successful in the Moto2 category because of his height. And yeah, then you have Jose Antonio Rueda in Moto3, incredibly talented rider. Will be fun. But the last lap today, it was very, very interesting to me.
That last lap overtake was some gang shit. That was absolutely brilliant from Izan Guevara. It tells you how good he is, that these things you almost just expect from him. That is how special Izan Guevara is. It's so funny because we have so many young, brilliantly talented riders, but Izan Guevara truly is the future, and the future is here already. That kid is so freaking talented. It's beyond description. Like you said, to peel away from a Moto3 grid and basically make it look easy, with the exception of another brilliant youngster, Deniz Öncü, it tells you how good he is. And my God, does Izan Guevara have a future ahead of him?
Yeah. The only negative thing about it is that every goddamn talent is Spanish.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the whole fucking world and nobody produces good riders except Spain and Italy. I mean, in a perfect world, you have like 2 riders from a nationality in MotoGP. You have like Toprak and Deniz, for example, from Turkey. But then it gets difficult. Who do you choose for Spain? I mean, there are so fucking many. And yeah, it's almost impossible,
Yeah, it's true. But look, at the end of the day, Central Europe is such fanatical motorcycle. Well, not even sort of Western mainland Europe, which is, of course, where Spain is. It's such devout motorcycle country that they're always going to produce brilliant talent. It's like football. Spain will always produce brilliant football players because the sport is so deeply ingrained there that it's just always going to have this carousel of brilliant talent. Personally, though, I do agree with you. As someone myself who's Irish, it's always nice to see someone on the very rare occasion from my part of the world who's there, because it's nice to break it up a bit and have different nationalities and different voices competing and doing really well. Like Brad Binder, it's great having a South African in the championship. Jack Miller, brilliant having an Australian in the championship. It would be cool to have some more Americans in the championship, because they obviously, their lineage is unquestioned in Grand Prix motorcycle racing. Yeah, it would be nice to break it up a little bit sometimes, to people from different parts of the world. We do have a few Japanese riders, I know, but it would be nice to have maybe a couple more of them. Some more Malaysian riders, people from everywhere. It would definitely be very nice.
Yeah, but it comes down to junior programs.
True.
Yeah, the Northern Talent Cup is producing some good talent, which will develop over the years. And the more people you get into motorcycle racing, the higher of a probability you have that the one special talent is in there. Because theoretically, anybody could be the next Marc Marquez, the next Fabio Quartararo, but never touched a motorcycle in their lives, so they don't know, you know? And the key is to get as much talent into the sport as possible. And the Asian Talent Cup is doing a phenomenal job there. A lot of riders are coming up, and you basically would need the same in America and build like an enthusiasm for the sport that people would want to put their children on a motorcycle and let them develop, support them, and not go bankrupt while doing it, you know?
Yeah, I think the big issue with MotoGP is probably affordability. That's the big thing because we've heard stories before from guys like, I'll just use them as the example, Casey Stoner and Jack Miller, and how much they struggle just to afford to stay in the junior ranks of the championship just to try and achieve their dream. I think if you make it more affordable, the talent you will draw in will be limitless. I mean, obviously, it's like a lot of things in life. Some people are just have financial barriers put in front of them. Some people have geographic barriers put in front of them. You remove as many of those as possible, you get the championship going on forever.
Yeah, yeah, Casey O'Gorman. He's from Ireland, and the Red Baroukis Cup is doing a phenomenal job there. They have to pay for all the flights and accommodation, but the racing in itself they get paid for, and which is brilliant. And we need more of this because when we take the 300,000 it costs for a Moto2 season, let's assume it's the same for the European Talent Cup. It's the same for the Junior GP, you know? Who the fuck pays 300,000 a year for basically a hobby?
I mean, some incredibly deranged rich person that you might know, because I don't know any of them.
Yeah, but with motorcycle racing, it's odd because in for me, it's like the same, a little bit like fighting. You shouldn't do it when you're already rich, you know? Because if I had like a couple million on the bank and with all the death and injury and all the shit in motorsport, like the same in martial arts. Jiu-jitsu is for me a very good martial arts, but it's incredibly draining on the body, but not the mind because you're not getting punched in the head. But you shouldn't do it when you're financially stable because you don't have to do it. But on the other hand, you can't do it in motorcycle racing. You can't do it if you don't have money. But I wouldn't put my son on a motorcycle.
You wouldn't.
I wouldn't know. Fuck no, no. I mean, I've seen enough people die in whatever, in Moto3 and Junior GP, or I don't remember Junior GP any death, but the European Talent Cup, you know, or riders getting injured and all of this shit. I wouldn't want this for my kids, you know.
Well, that
Go
makes sense. Yeah.
the same where I wouldn't, you know, I love martial arts, but I wouldn't want my kids to be a fighter. I don't want to be a fighter myself because I have a functioning brain inside my head and I would like to keep it this way. So I like training, but at the end of the day, it comes down to me from martial arts with a balance of being able to defend yourself and learn how to do it because when not, you're absolutely helpless in a situation which hopefully never occurs. Um, and especially like for my daughter, it would be very important to me that she learns to defend herself in a situation where she has to. Hopefully, it never occurs, but it's an evil world out there, and there I guarantee you, ask any woman you know, um, there has been a situation in their lives where they have been approached by a man and felt very, very uncomfortable. And you don't know how far this could go, and you have a fear inside you because whatever it is, those things happen, you know. If it's like you feel helpless, and I wouldn't want my daughter to feel helpless in a situation. But on the other hand, I don't want to my kids. I mean, it doesn't only apply to daughters; it applies to sons too. But culturally, women is like more in danger of those things, you know, even domestic violence or whatever, you know. And on the other hand, I wouldn't want them to be doing, let's say, MMA as the best martial art in itself, because it's a mixed martial art, and getting brain damage and whatever, you know, it's like a balancing act. And the same with motorcycle racing, which in itself has no benefits at all. I mean, cool, you can ride a motorcycle in a circle faster than anybody else, but it has like no real life benefits. And you're just risking your lives. And I don't want to be in a situation where Paolo Simoncelli was, where I see my son dying because he gets ran over by another motorcycle. And you can name all the people who have had horrible injuries, who have lost their lives in motorcycle racing, and I don't want that to be my son, you know, or my daughter.
I think that's a very fair argument. I tend to agree with a lot of what you said, but what I would say is the counterance to that is how many people do you know, Leo, and how many people do I know that live their lives miserably not doing what they love and what they live for? You know, it's a fair point to make. I'm certainly not taking away from that. But if we use the example, unfortunately, of the sheer tragedy of someone like Marco Simoncelli as the example here, yes, he lost his life in incredibly tragic circumstances and was taken far too young. But the one thing that brings people solace, and I'm sure the one thing that brings his dear father Paolo solace, is that he passed doing what he loved to do. He woke up every morning loving what he was doing, and he did it with no regrets either. He was a world champion because he loved it. He was great at what he did because he loved it. And look, in life, there's always an element of risk with everything. If life was risk free, nobody would do anything. That's just the thing. Um, Personally, if it was me and I was in that position, I would certainly never push anybody into anything. But I think if you find a passion for something and you find a reason to get up in the morning to do it, I think we owe it to people to encourage them as much as we can and to drive them in that support to do it. Because trust me, life ain't worth living otherwise.
Yeah, you're completely right. I can't argue with that. I would just, my opinion is just a different one there where I
No,
absolutely,
it's perfectly valid. I absolutely agree with you. I
absolutely,
just think sometimes, there's a lot of people who tragically pass, and it comes back to the whole risk thing. But there's a lot of people who die young but live better lives than many people who live until they're 90 or 80. And I think if we can find within all of ourselves, as well as other people, if we can find that thing that switches us on and that thing that makes us want to be better and drives us on to be better at something, I think life is far too short not to encourage it. That's just where I come from on it. Like if I was good at motorcycle racing, trust me, I would be at it, believe me.
yeah, I absolutely understand you. And my girlfriend, she's an equestrian, and I've seen enough people fall down from their horses and be carried away from helicopter into a hospital where you don't know what happened and you
Yeah.
the aftermath. I mean, it could be that there was a little girl, like 11 or 12 years old. Apparently, I don't know. My girlfriend didn't know her. I didn't know her, but the whole competition was broken, was paused because of this incident. And I wouldn't want to be that parent. And my girlfriend is doing an incredible, dangerous sport where people are frequently injuring themselves very, very seriously and sometimes even dying. And she's doing it because she loves it. And I don't necessarily fear for her life because it's something I don't necessarily want to think about. And but if it indeed occurred, I would egoistically, I would rather have her not being at 110% happy and be still there and being like you don't have to be like the most boring insurance salesman. There are enough ways you can live your life where you have an amount of thrill and happiness and doing things. I mean, you don't have to live in a bubble where everything is safe, but you know, you have to manage the line of what is too much and what is okay, and everybody has to decide it for their own. For example, I decided for myself that I enjoy training. I love martial arts, but I won't fight because I see no benefit of getting knocked out or whatever. And for the potential of going somewhere, you know, with the sport. And if I can make this decision as an adult, that's okay. But my problem is that a 3-year-old boy, which gets his first motorcycle, you don't see the danger and you don't see the bigger picture as a child, and that's where your parents are for. That you can all do your shit. I mean, I wouldn't mind. I race with a motorcycle in the garden all the time. It's incredibly fun to me. But the worst part which could happen is I crash, which I do all the time, and whatever, break my hand, break my leg. I can live with this, but I'm not getting ran over by somebody else. And if my children want to ride with a pocket bike in the garden, I don't care. But when it comes to motorcycle racing, like Moto3, for example, or even the European Talent Cup, those things are getting unmanageably dangerous for me when I envision that this is my child and like a 13-year-old kid who maybe doesn't know what the real dangers of the sport are. Find your passion when you're old enough, you know?
Again, it's a very fair point, and I do see where you're coming from, but my argument is in this point, it's kind of similar to what I said already. You know, I just think regardless of who you are, whether it's a friend, a family member, son or daughter, whatever it is, I think, and trust me, I know enough because I've been through the rigors of life myself, and you know, doing different jobs and that kind of stuff. As a friend, you know, a father, a mother, whatever, we owe it to people to allow them to pursue their passions. And I would rather have somebody who lived happily and took that risk rather than someone who didn't and was miserable. And you know, the thing is with any sport or any activity, there is always a degree of risk. There are people who've died from football injuries. Does that mean we stop every little boy and girl from going out and kicking a football? There's risk with motorcycles. Does that mean we stop every little boy and girl who gets their first mini moto? I just think, and maybe this is just my own point of view, maybe nobody will agree with me, and that's absolutely fine. I just think in life, we owe it to people to allow those who are newer to life to explore everything that it has to offer, because we never know what someone's passion is going to be. It could be someone who wants to play tennis, which is relatively risk free. It could be someone who wants to be an equestrian, like your lovely girlfriend, for example. But we owe it to people to showcase to them everything that they could be and everything that they have available to them, and then support them with it. There's always going to be risk, but I'd rather support someone than potentially hold them back and make them miserable.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's a totally valid point. And let's take Pecco as an example because he just been a world champion. He wouldn't have done anything different. And he wakes up knowing the risk. He knows everything. You know, he's an adult. He's older than me. And on the other hand, you have a little child who doesn't know all of this. And your life doesn't have to be miserable just because you don't do something which could be potentially your passion. And you could live a very, very happy life without risking your life on a daily basis because it's not black and white. There are many colors between, you know?
Yeah, it's totally fair. It is totally fair. And it's a very interesting debate, but it's one that I would definitely love to have on a longer scale, I think, to incorporate it into what we've talked about.
Yeah. I mean, car racing is a good example because car racing is relatively safe compared to motorcycle racing.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, but enough for today. I feel like we have a very, very interesting episode and got off the rails a little bit. So thank you for joining me. I guess maybe one last time this year, maybe we will do another winter episode. Who fucking knows? I guess it will be a little bit more spontaneous. I plan on doing maybe a podcast or two over the winter, and maybe three, who knows? And yeah, I enjoyed the season very, very much, the start of this journey with the show. And let's see how next season plays out. Thank you very much for all of your commitment, which you aren't getting paid for because I don't make money from it. And yeah, just doing it for the sake of it, I really appreciate it. I want to say thank you for it. You have been a very lovely conversation partner. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great evening. I hope everybody who listens has a great winter, whatever. The next time we hear each other, um, and I don't know what else to say. We had a great season. See you next year.
Oh, Leo, you're making me blush. Stop. No, no, but you know what? I really appreciate it. So it's unbelievably kind of you to say, my friend. And look, I love doing this as well. And it's like you said, but the monetary situation, until we start making millions from TikTok, we're doing this for the passion and the passion alone. But no, I really appreciate it. It's really kind of you to say, and right back at you as well. It's been a great season. It's been a brilliant first season of the BadMotoGP show. We've been finding our feet this season, obviously with it being the first one. But look, we do this because we love it. We love talking about it. We love breaking it down. We love discussing it. And we love the fact that you all love it as well. I appreciate all the support. I know Leo does as well. And I really cannot wait until next season. I look forward to the winter specials that hopefully we'll get done for you as well. And yeah, it's been a brilliant 2022 season.
Yeah, and on this note, I want to thank everybody as well who joined me this year. I mean, there have been many replacements when you weren't available. There have been writers who took their time for the podcast. Remy, for example, over the winter, and he was amazing. Joel Kelso in the summer, he was amazing. And Riley, the whole thing we did a couple of days ago, he was amazing too. The people who I got to know over this journey. I mean, it has been a great year for me personally regarding this channel. I went from getting banned last year to now 13.4 thousand followers on Instagram, started the podcast, started the show, met some incredible people, and learned a lot of new things. And hopefully we will continue to improve like this. I hope that the whole situation has been better from our first episodes. The conversations has been better, the sound, the audio, the video quality, hopefully. And we are planning another step there over the winter. And yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Keelan, and see you next year. Goodbye.
Thanks so much, everybody. See you on the next one.